for October 4th, 2018 open. Before we start, though, I'd like to ask Commissioner Gooch, if he would, to lead us in a word of prayer. This is the first time for a lot of us here. So.
I sure will. Thank you.
Oh, Father, we love you and we praise your name. We know that all good comes from you. And Father, we love your Son because he had first loved us. Father, we're so thankful for this day and this opportunity that we get to represent and serve the people of Rutherford County. And we would ask that you would give us a thoughtful mind and a loving heart. Father, we would ask that you bless our new mayor, this committee, and all the leaders here in this room. And we ask that when we err, that you would forgive us. And it's through your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. One thing else I want to say before we get started, having sat there where y'all are as brand new commissioners on a newer committee, it's really hard for me sometimes to keep up where we're at on the notebooks. And if you get lost somewhere, don't be embarrassed about that, because I guarantee you I'm going to get lost too. But one of us will show you the right page if there's any question about it, because like I said, we move pretty quick and we got a large agenda. So anyway, if you need something, just don't be afraid to speak up and say, hey, where are we here? Okay, we'll start off by approving the minutes of the August 9th, 2018 meeting.
I reviewed this. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Commissioner Dodge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, the first thing on our agenda is the investment report from Mr. Beatty.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, Ted.
Thank you, Commissioners. Great to be with all of y'all. It's kind of a new group. I'm usually always brief, but I'll answer any questions that you have about the investments. First, we always give you the LGIP rate. Those of you who don't know, that's the local government investment pool that is available to us in the municipalities and counties across the state, government agencies. We don't have any money at LGIP because our bank contract pays us 26 basis points, or just a little over 1/4% more than LGIP. But it's based on the prior month's LGIP, so we give you that for record, but know that our base is 26 basis points above that with the bank. So, but we give you that, and that's been going up about 7 basis points, or 0.07% about every month. And you may not keep up with, but the Federal Reserve raised the short-term rate 25 basis points the end of last month. The LGIP fund has 1/3 of its investments in overnight money. So it is very sensitive to interest rate changes. So I expect to see it increase, fairly significantly in the next month or two because those rates went up. So that means that our investments that are indexed to that will increase as well, just to give you a basis for how that works. But we do have some other investments that are in certificates of deposits, and they're listed on the top of that list. We used to do almost a year all the time, but of late we've taken the 6 months bid because rates are rising so quickly that it's better to turn that money. We're getting better rates because we've got one that's going to come due that's actually underwater, but it was a great rate a year ago when we bid it, and so. I will report on this bid next month. We'll have at least a couple to report next month. But we had a bid this week, and our 6-month rate was 265, 265 or 267, I believe. So that tells you kind of. And so we put that money out and invested as well. But that gives you some idea of those maturities and what those rates are. And so we're kind of taking the short-term rates and putting those out.
Any questions for Mr. Beatty? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second.
Just a second, I'm sorry. I hadn't learned the voices yet, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher, everybody in Las Casas knows that voice. I don't understand why Mr. Moore can't get that.
Okay, in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Next on the agenda is the fund condition report. Lisa will take care of that.
I'll
for us,
take
I
care of
believe.
that. Since we didn't meet in September, so we were kind of behind 2 months. August is there for your review, but I'll speak from September since it's going to have the August activity already in it. All right, Mark. There it is. All right, so starting with development tax, August we received 400 and, let me pull it from here because I can't read it on that thing. August, we received 496,500. September, we received 725,250. After our adjustment for the year, we received 2,012,250. So we have already met, almost met, our budget with 3 months into the year on development tax. When we talk about that, half of it goes to debt service, half of it goes to the general fund for our capital projects. Moving to the 2 pages over, which is the cash balances for September. At the end of September, our cash balance totaled $289,699,000, with $201,451,000 being operating funds, $88,248,000 being borrowed funds.
Yeah, y'all are a lot better than me if you were able to keep up with which page that's on.
I did
Probably
it
you are, so.
from this one. So as you look at this, and these are all our different funds listed. The 171 funds are our county capital projects. The 189 are our school capital projects. And you'll see we've got totals of how much cash are in those total projects. Sometimes, as you see, if you look at the year before, you'll see some negative cash. Sometimes the commission will approve projects, but we won't have borrowed the money. We will have used money that we've borrowed for other projects. We're just kind of using that cash, that bond money, until we go to the bond market to replace those funds. Right now, we've borrowed everything for every project, so we don't have negative cash on any of the funds. But that would be something that you would ask for. If you see a negative on that column, you might ask about it. And then the other pages that follow kind of tell you where we are in the year for revenues and expenditures. But for revenue, if you don't mind going to that 3C and look at that. And so what I'm demonstrating,
3C a page number?
That's a top.
it's a tab. It's going to look something like this, but it's colored. Okay. So our books are on a cash basis until June. And then June, for us, stays for a very long time. June 30th is a very long day for us. It ends about the 3rd week of July. But that's when we set our accruals. So when you look at the revenue numbers, know that the monies that we received in July really are the prior month's revenue. So when you see July through September, it's really 2 months worth of activity. So what I am trying to demonstrate on this page is how are we compared to the last 5 years. Each of these years are comparing where we are today, July-September period, to the total of what we received. The last column is the current year, and I'm comparing what we've received compared to the budget. As long as these numbers are higher than about where we are in the prior years, that's an indicator to me is that we're ahead. As long as it stays ahead, then that's telling me toward the end of the year we will be able to amend revenue in. So that's what I'm looking for. And the way I kind of this time. I used to have smiley faces, and so what I decided this time is I'm highlighting the cell green if it's good, not green if it's not so good. So all the funds right now are tracking in green. See?
I do still like it when you did footnotes at the bottom. if
Yes,
there's anything.
I will start that next month, especially after October, after they've collected property tax. And a lot of that is, you know, I keep up with how much of the tax they have collected at that time compared to the last 4 years. Where are we? You know, kind of gives us an indicator. Is the trustee ahead or behind? Right. So really in 2 months worth, you're not really getting a lot of data. And as Commissioner Allen said, I will start putting notes in, things that are unusual, that I'll start dropping those comments in here. And typically what I do is give you, you know, how are we in sales tax? How's the sales tax coming in? Hotel, motel tax, those particular local revenues, I kind of give y'all some indicators of where we are.
Check out it.
It's got it.
Anybody have any questions for Lisa on the fund condition? If not, we'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve our report.
Second.
Mr. Gooch. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I left out one thing. It's
Okay.
just information. It's on that development tax. Murfreesboro received $432,000 for a 288 unit apartment, and Smyrna had 92 units, 138,000. 4 apartments.
Okay. And now we're ready for the risk management, the risk management financial reports. And I think Lisa's going to also fill in for.
My kids are grown. I don't take off my break. So, okay. So we're going to go over, there's three funds that we have that's related to insurance. One is, you'll hear us refer to it as 264, and that is our health insurance fund. 266 is workers' comp off our OJI on the job injury program. So what we are trying to demonstrate, Ms. Street and I look at this differently. For her, it's a calendar year. Her rates and everything are based on calendar year. I look at it as fiscal year because that's kind of what I'm looking for, is what is it going to do to, you know, how's it looking for us at the end of June 30th. So she has the picture graph and then the bar graph. And what she is showing here on revenue for 2018, revenue of $47,781,495 on the top, compared to expenditures of $45,224,707. So we're tracking good on a calendar year, dropping below for a fiscal year.
This is through August. There is
Yeah.
September's reports in here also.
Okay,
If you want to go to September.
let's do that. Let's go to the
it's,
September one.
Go to page 8 of 12.
8 of 12. We might as well start looking at that. 8 of 12. So on a calendar year basis, revenue of $54,702,207 compared to expenses of $50,481,211. On a fiscal period through September, revenue of $10,278,801 compared to $17,455,065. So what is happening there is that the revenue coming from the schools, they only take health insurance out 10 months of the year. So they're not taking it in July and August. We don't have revenue from the schools July and August. It starts coming in September, but they pay the same thing that the county does. They just pay it over 10 months, and the county pays it over 12. So this, while this looks scary, it's not unusual.
Is that the same if they have a 12-month distribution?
Yes, even if they have the 12-month distribution, it's still, they only take insurance premiums 10 times a year. So to the left of it is the comparative picture. So you can see on a calendar year, last year for the same period of time is revenue at $48,066,000, expenses at $50,807,000. On a calendar basis, on a fiscal year basis, revenue of $9,162,000 compared to $16,586,000 for expenses.
How do you explain the jump in revenue then, this year?
We did have increase.
54.
You're going from
54,702,000 just looks so much better than last year's
at 48.
calendar period. Yeah. When the expenses were similar.
We increased the rates.
We did increase rates, but that would be, we did have an increase in
Okay,
rates.
Okay, trying to get to that 20%.
Yeah. Okay. So the next page that looks like this, those are just dollars, the dollars behind it. It gives you the same information, just in a, it's really how you receive your information, which is better for you to look at. The top two are the comparison for, on the calendar year basis. The next two lines is the fiscal year. So when you're on here, I'm going to talk about this over here. I'm going to talk about this block right here. And you hear us talking about OPEB, its other post-employment benefits, yes. And for us, that is health insurance that the county said that we will pay when you retire. There's a lot of different buckets. If you follow in the various buckets based on when you were hired, is how much the county will pay towards your retirement. So there's a calculation done to try to match your cost of that employee's real cost of being here and overtime. This is going to change because our accounting standards have changed. But this gives you an indicator of how much our liability is for those benefits that we have. It's right now, if you looked at 2017 audit, it's just information in the footnotes. For a 6/30/18 audit, it's going to be on the financial statements. It's going to be really ugly. But what we're showing here as of 6/30/17, the net post-employment, other post-employment benefits for the schools portion is $84,164,000. For the county, it's $18,128,000. So we have this, I call it a fuzzy number because it's fuzzy. It's an actuarial based number. But our liability then is $102 million, of which that we don't have any money set aside in a trust that can offset our liability. So it's more than y'all wanted to know, but I just want y'all to know that we try to give you this information each year of what this liability is and how it grows.
And we paid that $18 million.
We do not pay, we have not, that's our liability, we have not paid it. It's a
That's the
liability.
actuarial part, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Nobody has any more questions, I'm gonna move to the work injury, the OJI. This compares the prior year again to the current, the blue against the
The next page.
orange. Yep, I'm on this one. And on this one, the one that's most, for me to look at is this one. Because I like to see how much money are we, where are we at? Our total revenues for 18-19, and the revenues that come into this is money coming in from the funds, from the insurance fund, the work injury fund, and our property casualty the highway, schools, and county all funnel money into these funds to pay these claims. So for 18-19 through September. Our claims year to date was 133,106 compared to the first 3 months of last year totaled. That is not a right number. That's a year number. You're just gonna have to, that's 300, 347. It is 347.
Large claim in July last year.
That 180, that was the big one. Okay. So year-to-date, 133 current year compared to 347, 605. The next slide, we've been doing, this is our second year, showing the comparison of what we are spending out our property casualty claims. The committee wanted to know how much our county attorney expense compared month over month, year over year. And I'm on this one. And that's really just information for you. September, we paid out $12,868 compared to $43,088 the prior September. So that's all I have.
Are there any questions on the risk management financial reports? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I don't think we have to call roll on any of these until we get into spending money. So, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's see, our next thing on the agenda is the general fund budget transfer for Falls. And Mr. Gregory, yeah, he is here.
Good evening.
Hello. That's going to move money within our budget as we've done before. We have a full-time veterinary position that's funded. We've not been able to fill that, so we've been using contract help. And this is to transfer money from that full-time line over into veterinary services to pay that contract veterinarian.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Don. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, in that case, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Gregory.
Appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is the general fund budget amendment for the sheriff's department. I think we have the sheriff and Ms. Saxon here.
So we can do all three of these.
Yes.
Need to move unexpended donated funds from the 2017-18 fiscal year for the greenhouse and Memorial Garden to the 18-19 fiscal year in an amount of $1,114 into other contracted services and other supplies and materials. I need to recognize insurance recovery of $41,255 into our motor vehicle account.
What we'll do, we'll let her continue unless one of you have a question about that, and we can vote at any time anybody wants to. If not, we'll continue until I hear something different.
Need to recognize revenue from our alcohol enforcement team driving grants and appropriate the funds into, it's about $60,000 into our GHSO overtime, our team program overtime, and some in-service for our team program, and then into the salary line items for the overtime.
If you have any questions there, that one unassigned fund balance is actually money that wasn't spent last year that they had to turn in from a grant that they're just requesting back. So it's actually not new money, although it looks like it, so.
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion, second from anyone, please.
Second.
Commissioner Gooch. Have a motion and a second. I won't call the roll on this.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Next is the
Skype.
Skype. Okay. Go ahead.
This, we have been involved with the Skype program. It's called the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program. That's why we call it Skype, because it's a mouthful. Okay. We chose this year not to apply for it because it was a lot of work for only $4,000 or $5,000 worth of money. Okay, that's all we were getting, but we were putting a lot of man hours into it. I was introduced to this company at the Sheriff's Association. They assist you in getting federal reimbursement from the federal government. It's about $121 million out there for this program. Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, we don't tend to take advantage of it, and they're trying to branch to us to get us to take advantage of this program. What they do is take our reports of undocumented criminals that are in our facility. They have software that will show where they have been convicted in prior states, counties, and we can recoup some money. I mean, it's, you know, a big bunch of money that gets to filter down. But we did a preliminary report with them yesterday while they were flying back to Texas. I submitted our last year, which is on a federal thing, so it would be from September to October.
October 1 to September 3.
Right. And preliminarily, there's $20,000 that could be ours. But we have a debt of 20, which is way more than the $4,300 that we have been getting from this program over the years. And we now have sent them an unfiltered report that they say we will probably get more. You know, it might not be $5,000 or $6,000, but it's money I don't have to do any work for, other than to ask y'all's approval for us to move forward to apply before January or October 29th, and to allow this company, JBI, to assist us in this process. And they are a contingency.
They work
But
off commission.
off of
So they get
commission.
8%.
So
Yes.
they gave me it's like, if we got 15,000, we would pay them $2,031, and I'm still bringing home $12,969 for absolutely running a report for them.
They'll get the 17% when it reaches.
Well, that's based on the
That's based on the
17.
17,
Our baseline will be the 43, whatever we earned last, $4,312. They subtract that from the 15, and then it's 17% based on the 10,600.
But they get 8% of that baseline, that 4,300.
Right now, it's 5%
Right
on
now it's
anything
5.
less than 5,000.
Okay, the contract that's in front of us is
It says
8%.
8%.
Right up to the baseline.
I know, this year, say if we only got 4,300 next year, which is not gonna happen, they would only take 5, so that's, they've got to use my baseline right now. But yes, 17% is gonna
Above the
be.
baseline of 4312.
Right.
Do we know anybody else who's done business with this
Yes,
company?
and that's why I had to wait to meet with Reba and her today. I spoke with Sheriff Long, Williamson County, Montgomery County. They were also not getting, the reason why we weren't getting money, we were basing ours off of ICE codes, because we don't have the system to go and look to see who's undocumented and who is not. That's all we can base it on is our ICE codes. Well, there's a whole lot of people in our jail that doesn't have an ICE code, or in other jails. They have that system to go. Now that we know we have a partner that's with BGA, Bureau of Justice Assistance Program, they have that software.
What's the additional work on you? But, so let's say somebody gets arrested today, and they're
We will
undocumented,
run-
what happens?
There's a.
Your report right there is what I sent them. That's for 1 year based on their numbers they gave me. All we
So
did was
it's
run
regardless
that
of what the
report.
disposition of of the inmate is. That the disposition of the inmate has nothing
Has
to
nothing to do with it.
the
It's us
reimbursement.
housing.
Okay.
It's just reimbursing us to house.
That's right.
Now, it's not nowhere close what we pay, but it's something we've
But
not
it's more
gotten
than what
before.
we're getting now. We're not getting,
And
uh,
used to, you know, we'd have to go and have to get with Reba and have to do all these reports on ice holds and per inmate and all this. We don't have to do that.
Do you think that it's negotiable? Because it says they'll be paid its fees for a minimum of 4 years worth.
Yes, I can talk to them and say at any time. I think there's a 30-day clause in there also that we can,
either party?
Either party
I
can,
believe that's correct.
can get out of the contract with a 30 days notice. If not, I'll add it. And this would be looked at by legal too. It's not something I'm just gonna say, ooh.
You just hope that, you know, that when we talk, that she's going to try to get that done before next Thursday.
Well, we're pushing for next Thursday, but I mean, it'll be run through county legal before we do anything.
Do anything, like all contracts or agreements. This isn't really a contract, it's an agreement.
Is it based on how many average days that we have undocumented, and then do they come and, does ICE come and get them, or what is?
ICE? Well, that's what we were basing. We won't have to do that
We
with
won't
this
have to do
company.
that with this company. They look at the totality of it. The only thing we had was, of course, we knew we had an ICE hold.
Right.
But we've got several that there's no ICE hold. We're housing because they're under indictment or whatever for charges. And what this is taking into account is the totality. It's not just looking at a segment of that population.
They have software
They've got
that
software
can,
that we don't have. That's what.
you know, he was arrested in Texas. I don't have
We
that
don't have that,
information.
so we don't know
So
that.
we collect money because of his conviction in Texas. Whereas before, we could only do day for day when they were in our.
I guess the advantage is we could only look at in a house, they're looking at the totality of
Everything.
where they've been all over the U.S.
They're saying 100% allowable data, is that paragraph A, page 6, so they have data they have a lot of data, it looks like,
Yes, sir.
if I'm reading this paragraph.
Well, through the Department of Justice, and we don't have that access.
Like I told Ms. Nolan this afternoon, they've got something that nobody else has. You know, as far as how they get their information. I can't run NCIC on these people that come in. We can't do it. So apparently they have something that we don't have to show convictions and how long they've been in Texas or Georgia or Minnesota or wherever they are.
Preble, will you be able to retro for last year?
That's what we're
That's
trying,
what
that's
we're
why we're
trying to
under
do.
a deadline. I need to file for this by October 29th. And we should get, they're estimating 20. They want to look at my unfiltered report I sent them today, and it could be a little more.
We didn't see this in public safety because they didn't know about it at the
No, sir.
time.
I
That's-
reached out to Commissioner Reed, Chairman Reed, and told him what we're doing just before this meeting, and we just came to light on this, and he gave us permission to be able to bring it before.
He had contacted the rest of the public
Yes,
safety
now,
commissioners, or tried to anyway.
What we're going to do is I'm sending him tomorrow the basis of this, and then we're going to bring it back up in public safety so they'll know what it was that we brought here.
For those of you that have been around a while, this is similar to what our ambulance service did on some of the fees they weren't collecting. If y'all recall, we hired an agency to do some collecting for us. So I kind of look at it in a similar light, so it's not something we hadn't looked at before. Are there any other questions for the sheriff or Preble?
So I still don't see that 30-day clause anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this would come back before y'all anyway. I would make sure that it's in there. I thought I read that there was a,
It just talks 30 days about payment of legal fees, but for 30 days, and then interest 60 days, but I don't see anything about termination by either party. There's a severability clause, which is good.
Is that what I read? I was reading it through something like this right here.
Severability doesn't have anything to do with getting out of the contract.
No, but I like severability clauses, so.
But this also, if I'm not mistaken, would tie us in for 4 years. counting
That's
what-
why I was asking if there's a way to, if they negotiate that.
Here it is,
Yes.
Article 3. I don't see that on this.
No,
this
no,
one
no,
here.
and we were in, I'm sorry, I
Sure.
was talking to them at 3 o'clock
Okay.
because I was trying to wrap everything up. So you got a
We're
scan
missing a
that might
page,
not
actually.
be.
Yeah, we're missing
We're
that.
missing page 2.
So what she has here, it says initial term be for 4
Oh,
years.
Yeah,
Okay.
page 2.
Oh,
missing on
okay,
here.
1, 3.
Yeah, I just noticed that. They went from 102 to 502.
Trying to get out of Mark, trying to get it all
So
scanned,
it's
trying
it's
to.
an automatic renewal on a year-to-year basis under the same terms and conditions, unless written notice is given at least 30 days prior to the expiration of the agreement.
So you're locked in a year at a time,
Right.
but
We only get one deposit from this a year, guys. It's not like we
It's
get
not
money every month.
Is that one
It's at
time?
the end of the year, federal budget year. They do the report. We get a lump sum. Then they invoice us for their amount, so I still have to pay it through a PO process. It's not coming out.
they don't take it off the top.
They do not.
do
They
not.
invoice us,
They invoice us for it.
and I'll do a PO. And
Yeah, that was really the only piece that gave me any heartburn too, was the, making sure the term was clear, because the 4 years wasn't clear, because I'm missing page 2, and then the out wasn't clear. So if, yeah, those two things are in there, I would feel
Well,
better
I
about it.
think what's missing on my iPad is
Page 2,
is page 2.
yes.
and that's our fault. We were just going in a hurry.
Yeah, just got put in here about 4:15.
And then, of course, anything we pass would be contingent upon
It would be.
our attorney
Correct.
saying this is plain for us to do.
Gonna make money.
Well,
Trying to.
I think they're gonna find a lot more than we ever did.
That's good.
Well, one other point, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't do this, we're not gonna get any money
We're not-
whatsoever because
We're
it's
not
not gonna
out
be,
any money.
they don't have the time to pursue it or manpower to pursue having somebody do this for us.
We don't have the
So-
software.
Well, our
to do
problem is we don't have the software that they've got,
No.
so we would be back trying to do all this for $3,000 or $4,000, which, what it would cost us to do that, it wouldn't be worth it. Where they've got the software that they can look nationwide, where all I can look at is our jail. I don't have that capability.
Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve it subject to the attorney review.
Motion, Commissioner Johnson. Is there a question? Since we're not spending money, we can do this by roll call also. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, so this will be carried forward to our commission meeting next Thursday. And we should have a report by then from our attorney, so, thank you.
I got one DER custom, U.S. Customs Border Patrol amendment.
Okay.
Number 7.
It's number 7.
Yeah.
Okay. We had a deposit in our account for $3,650.79 from the U.S. Customs Border Patrol Fund. We'd like to put that in our maintenance and repair vehicle line item.
So moved.
Commissioner Dodd.
Second.
Gooch. We have a motion and a second. We'll call roll on this, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can I just talk about this?
Thanks for working on that so diligently. I want to work
Information.
quickly there.
Quick 2
Right.
days.
Appreciate to see you on there.
Just for the rest of the committee, this Fund 121
Thank you.
is very different from the other ones in that we can't estimate revenue. Like we do for the other funds, we estimate revenue and we estimate how we're going to spend it. That is against their rules. So we only we do this. Every time that they get money, they tell us, and then they budget it as they receive it.
At one
It's
time,
just
it was
different.
building up over several months, and then we asked them, as one of the former committees, budget committee asked them to bring it to us sooner, so.
So, I mean, that's just a little different, weirdness to this particular fund.
Okay, next thing up is a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Education for the Health Department. I don't think Dana's not here, so.
That's okay, I can do this one. I did work with her on it. And if you remember, under the Department of Health, they do have tobacco cessation money. And this is how they are wanting to spend it. It's with a curriculum that the school board will do at I think 13 schools. And it's online, and the kids can go in there and go through their program and try to keep them from smoking. So this is an agreement, it's the understanding, a member of understanding between Rutherford County and the Board of Education that they will do this program and then provide Dana with all the statistical information that she will need to turn into the state. The state ultimately is paying for this.
How do they collect this data from the students?
It's an online
So it's an
test.
online, there's no testing or anything of
Um,
anybody? I saw that parents can take their kids out, but I just wanted to check and see how they were collecting data.
I'm sure it's,
It's online testing, and then they go back after a certain period of time and they retest to see what information they've retained and that kind of thing. So it's over a course of time, so. I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion, I hear a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Since looks like we could expend some money, but
well,
We'll spend 25,000.
25,000.
let's call the roll then.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes. Okay, motion
And just for
passes.
everybody else, those are pass-through funds. That tobacco money is grant money that we get from the state. And because our health department has been so successful with it in the past, there are other communities who've not been successful or have not used that money. So we continue to get money from that fund because Dana's been so effective with it. So it's really just, you said we could spend that money, it's pass-through money.
Right, right. Okay, next thing is the general fund budget transfer for fire rescue. And we'll ask Mr. Farley, Chief Farley, to come up. Welcome.
Thank you. First amendment, we'll take them one at a time. Well, is to transfer $5,000 out of our vehicle maintenance into data processing for software for our vehicle maintenance. It tracks our maintenance parts, labor, and then if we have an issue with the truck, the guys have an app that they go out and check the truck off, and if there's anything wrong, it documents it and sends an email to our maintenance guy, and he comes out and fixes it right then. So helps us track all of our parts and maintenance issues.
On that one, let's go ahead and vote on these individually because we're going to be talking about some money here in just a minute. So.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
You got the second? Okay. There's no money involved in this
yeah,
one.
well,
It's actually transferring
it's just a
money.
transfer.
Not any new money. Call the roll.
We'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes.
The next one is a budget amendment for salaries, Social Security, pensions, employee, department insurance, disability insurance, and employee Medicare. We received a grant. If you remember, we got permission to apply for a separate grant last year for 15 firefighters. We've been awarded that grant. The grant pays 75% of the salaries for the first 2 years, and then the third year pays 35%.
This amendment is assuming that we're going to get started the 1st of December.
this come from Citus tax money?
Yes, if, that's one of the things that we looked at when I was speaking with Larry. He was like, okay, how would we fund this if this was 100% county funded? So my question is, do we have enough Citus money available to say that's how we are using to fund this? One of the things with this grant is that it is just for firefighters. If there was a new facility, there would be other rank that would be expected to be in a new facility. But this grant still only does for the firefighters. The county is responsible for anything above that. So I rolled back and said, what if we did all this ourselves? And the answer is yes, there would be sufficient Citus money, but that doesn't mean that we're not using that Citus money already for something else. I'll give this to you so you can see what I'm talking about.
Lisa, go ahead and explain, if you don't mind, what Citus money actually means and what it can be used for,
Okay.
and where it's coming from.
And I've got it, I've got it down on the bottom. And so, what we're talking about is money that is derived from the rural area or our part of a tax. There's certain tax that is considered Citus. To me, site. Typically what we use is sales tax. That's one thing, that's the sales tax that comes in from purchases made in the rural area. We've got 20% that is coming into the 20, 40, 60, into the general fund. And I'm down here, that's where I'm looking at. That's my estimates, like how much Citus money do we have coming in? This column here is the original budget with just that personnel, and that's more than just the firefighters, that's ranks added in. And I'm estimating that at about $919,000. So the last column is what if we added that in, his budget would be at $4,770,000, and I'm estimating we've got $5.5 million in Citus tax available. So that was my warm fuzzy that yes, we do have Citus money that would cover this. But again, it's, well, where's that Citus money now? Well, it's being used to fund the budget. The other thing I throw out would be a penny now brings $900,000. So about another penny is what it would need in the future to cover these expenses.
Which this is basically allow another station.
We got 2 full-time stations right now on the north and south of the county. This will allow us to staff another station, which we'll probably have to build another station based on where CTAS takes all of our runs and our fire calls and stuff, and then come up probably with 3 or 4 different locations to build one. Me and the mayor's talked about it. There's definitely enough county property out there where we need one to build on. But at that time, this would be 15 level firefighters. As we build another station and gets built, then the people we have now would be promote another captain, 2 lieutenants, 3 engineers, and the rest can be firefighters. So you have virtually 5 promotions, 6 promotions.
Plus new personnel.
Yeah, these are just entry-level firefighters. The ones we've already got hired now, some of those will be promoted when we have a new station available.
Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, in my discussions with our Director of Finance and Chief, I just wanted the members in Public Safety Committee to understand a number of years ago, back when Clinton was in office, they sent out federal dollars to hire policemen all over the country. Remember that?
Cops.
And we did that, and I think that she's proven to me, Lisa's proven to me that at the end of 3 years, because that's where the big picture is the end of 3 years, it's 100% hours. And at that point in time, there are hours, and then that's going to necessitate that we have to build a third location. And you'll have some of those firefighters that he currently has, because these 15 are level ones, they'll be elevated. So just get the bigger picture. I think we can do it based on our hotel motel and our sinus dollars coming in, right?
To say, so for me, the question is, do we have Sidus tax to cover it? That you're not having to reach out and say, to have the fire tax conversation.
I didn't bring it up.
Right, so, I mean, that's not what we're, that's.
No,
We would have to allocate that site
But-
at an appropriate time.
Right, we appropriate that, we move that money that's being
It's
used
using
somewhere
some-
now. We're using that now for other purposes, but now it would have to be allocated to this.
Out of the budget.
Out of the budget, which there's a hole. There's the hole where we just moved it over, and that hole was about a penny,
So what's going to refill the hole?
about a penny.
Taxes, increase of a penny,
Or your revenues.
or revenue
Right.
goes up.
Or other revenues go up.
And this went through Public Safety Committee. Do you recall, what was the vote there?
100%.
It was unanimous.
I'm the representative for public safety, and, that's why I was speaking a little bit more there. And, I'm an old volunteer firefighter myself, and, I like the volunteers, and I like the fact that there's people out there willing to do that for us. But the fact is, we don't have as many volunteers, and, there's going to come a time when we're going to, eventually there will be no volunteers, and we'll pick this up. I know years ago, when I first came on the commission, Wilson County had a paid fire department, and their budget was around $8 million, and that's been a long time ago. I don't know what their budget is now, but we're still.
Well, to be clear, Wilson County has an EMS fire
Right.
agency. They have, so they actually fund their fire service by what they collect in the ambulance service, so it is tied together. So it's county EMS and fire agency.
At any rate, what I was getting at is, there's some of these other counties out there that's been doing this for a lot longer than what we've had. And, with our population growth, I mean, that's the thing that's catching us all, is where our population is booming, and it's going to continue to grow from all of the expectations. It's something we need to, seriously look at, so.
100 new home permits just this past month.
When the majority voted to increase that hotel and motel tax, one of my questions was, we're taking money from hotels inside the city of Murfreesboro and Smyrna and using it to fund the rural fire department service. And I understand that they pay for schools in Smyrna and Laverne and all that too. But I still haven't wrapped my mind around how that makes the most sense with that money.
It's not just fire that they do.
I know just things on the interstates and.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
just
it's-
to give you an idea, we do fire suppression, we do vehicle rescue. If you're on I-24, we're coming after you. If you're in a wreck, we do fire suppression, vehicle rescue, we got AMTs and paramedics on our trucks, so we do provide medical care. We do flood and swift water training, which we sent people to South Carolina. We have a complete fire investigation division. We investigate all fires, and we also do code enforcement. And as I work with planning, we look at everything that comes through as far as new development on commercial stuff. So there's a lot going on, and a lot of capabilities we try to provide to the public other than fire suppression, vehicle rescue. And 45% of what we do is medical. 50% of what we do is fire and rescue on the interstate and vehicle electrification, people trapped in vehicles. If you drive through Murfreesboro, you can see how easy it is to be involved in an accident. 2010, the countywide call volume at that time was 1,300 calls. We ran close over, just right under 7,000 calls last year, and that's countywide. So like I say, Miss Rhonda sets on planning. There's just subdivision after subdivision, people coming here left and right, and there's just a lot more activity for us to do. So like we said, we cover I-24 all the way through Smyrna, because Smyrna Fire Department doesn't cover the interstate. We cover from let's see, 66 to the 74, and then we pick back up at Joe B. Jackson, run all the way to the Copper County line. So anything on the interstate, whether it be a vehicle fire, extrication, wreck, we service that area. Plus everything out in the rural area. Although anything, we still got volunteers. Nationwide, volunteerism is down 80% across the nation. And anytime we have a call, the volunteer fire department is called out, we automatically roll from one side of the county to the other to roll up and assist them. Case in point, to get public safety, we had a structure fire on Caneyville Pike the other morning. We had I had one of my county stations there out of Walter Hill. We had Lascassas, Kittrell, had a crew from Christiana, Allenville. We had everybody there except for Fossville. And each volunteer truck you get, you're lucky if you get 1 or 2 people on a truck. So, so I had to call in a truck from Laverne. I called in a truck from Wilson County to help our manpower, because they were on the scene from about 4:30 that morning to, I think they left at 10:30. They all went up in the morning, so they were there quite some time they fight the fire, and it's intrusive on manpower, and it wears people out, so you got to swap people out. 7 o'clock, I brought my next crew in, and the guys that were there in the morning, I sent them home. So we were just trying to get fresh people on the scene, because, the volunteers do a great job, but like I say, at that time of day, you're lucky if you get 3 or 4 people per truck, and there's a lot of people just one person on a truck. Plus, it was out there where there's no water, so we had to haul water. So that's people on a truck that takes them off the fire scene. So it's just the manpower intrusive, really.
There was another question I had, Mr. Chairman. When I was talking to the chief about it was, okay, we're getting a grant for the firefighters, but what about turnout gear and training? Unfortunately, right behind this,
I got a grant for
turnout gear. So I guess you'll be sharing that next. That's right behind it.
I'm much more sympathetic and willing to vote for things that are one-time expenses than things that obligate us to future years' salaries and benefits, because 15 firefighters, once we bring them in, nobody's
That's 100%. I just want
nobody's
members
going to
to
vote
understand
to
that.
remove them, so.
It's 100%. And we're not going to get rid of them
That's
once we get
exactly
them.
right.
And you're looking at that the right way. We're basically looking at adding a penny to our tax rate for picking these 15 firefighters up. So that's basically 1 cent to add this protection to the rural areas of the county, wherever that might be. I don't know. And I don't think Mr. Farley, or Chief Farley knows yet, do you?
I got some good ideas, but like I say, we'll let CTAS take all the information and do a study, and they'll come back with probably 3 or 4 different locations. And then I'll sit down with the mayor and we'll discuss where he thinks the best possible place to be.
Will the 1 cent be added at the end of this fiscal year or at the end of this grant?
Well, I mean, you've got a year, 2 years where it's going to be 75% funded. So you only really got to come up with 25%.
So you're looking at a full 1% in 3 years? And it's 75,
That's what I was trying to
75,
demonstrate,
35, 30.
Commissioner, is that what if we were to do it today, I would say you need at least a penny. But you've got growth of assessments. I mean, there could be other revenue growth. So I will say a penny, equivalent penny.
There's another motel or 2 on the drawing boards as well, so it'll be more motel tax.
But the third year, as he said, 30, the grant only covers 35% in the third year. So in that third year, we're going to be,
Yeah, it's a full rate.
hit a little harder.
So it's a gamble.
And does this penny only cover the 15, or does it cover the chief structure, all of that?
Well, this structure, the 919 was all the rank. I wanted to know.
It was every rank.
I
Okay.
wanted to know what it would be if we were to
Actually set up
another one.
Okay.
What would it cost?
Okay, that's what
That was my view.
And so that's
That's
what
the
penny would
900.
cover. Okay. And then, I know you said you want to get the information from CTAS. Is there a reason why we would wait a full 3 years to build?
Oh, no, well, I plan, we'll have that information hopefully. I was hoping to have it for public safety, but I should have it here pretty quickly. And then I would budget this year to try to get funds to build a station, which has capital funds. So, and based on where the location is where we try to build a station. Of course, it's going to take you at least a year to build that station from the time you budget it and get it built and get people in it. So it'll be next budget year before we'd ever promote people.
This amendment that he has before you is only firefighters.
Right.
It's just.
And this is just
in our
salaries,
rank.
this is not training them?
Well, part of them working with us is training, but we hope to hire people who are already trained, certified.
And are these salaries at a level that would attract that?
Yeah, I mean, it's comparable with what everybody else is paying. Two, you got to understand, Martinsburg got a grant for 27 people. Hendersonville got a grant. Portland got a grant. Gallatin got a grant. And McMinnville's on it. So right now is a great time to be a firefighter in Middle Tennessee because the growth is coming here so big that cities are applying for grants and everybody's having to increase services. So if you want to be a full-time firefighter right now is the time to get in the field because we're going to be competing with all these other locations for firefighters.
Trying to understand where all the dollars are.
Are the last 15 you got on grant money, are they still on grant money, or they?
They're
it's
done.
over?
They're done.
It's over.
You need a motion, Mr. Chairman.
We do.
I will make that motion, the public welfare requiring it.
Mr. Johnson.
Is this a motion to approve the budget amendment and to accept the grant?
And accept the grant.
Second.
Pearson. So we have a motion and second, and this is to accept the grant and also for the budget.
To amend the budget.
To amend the budget.
The 125.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion?
I do want to say one thing that might influence Commissioner Stevens' vote. Being on Planning Commission, I think one of the unintended consequences when the laws changed on cities' ability to annex, originally the idea when urban growth boundaries were designed and defined, the idea was that it was expected that those cities and those city governments would expand to those boundaries and they would be the ones to take on the responsibility for providing these services. Now we've got large subdivisions that are coming in that urban growth boundary area and they're very close to the city and it's almost indistinguishable if I'm in the city or if I'm in the county in a lot of these places. So that burden, it's just an unintended consequence. That burden is now going to fall on the county to provide those services because when you have a 300 neighborhood development come in, you want to have fire protection. You don't want to not
They
have...
expect it.
Well, and you want to have it. You don't
Yeah.
need one of those houses catching on fire and you can't get to it and put it out. So, anyway, I'm just saying, it doesn't feel like it's a responsibility, but it's become one. So,
One other thing I'd like to mention too, this was pointed out in public safety, of course, being a firefighter myself in the past, I'm aware of what a difference having a rural fire department means. You know, when Kittrell went from a 10 to a 5, I had people calling me that were saving $1,000 a year on their insurance. And all of you got constituents out there where Chief Farley's group has been able to lower their rates to a 5, if I'm not mistaken, and those areas span the county and places that were 9 and 10. So you're probably going to get some calls, Commissioner Gooch, saying thank you for getting a 5. I think you had some that were in 5 already, but some of your... They did. They should have. If I'd have been there, I would have called
them and tell them that you got it for them.
A lot of people, don't realize where that came
Send them a
from.
postcard.
But that's another plus for doing this.
Yeah, and also the tankers that y'all have bought us has provided us the lower ISO rating out in the rural area because the way ISO works, if you're within 1,000 foot of a hydrant and less than 5 miles from a station, you get that Class 5 rating. The difference between a Class 5 and a Class 10 is about $600 or $700 a year in homeowners insurance. But because of those tankers, we could have dropped to a 4, but went to a 5, and by doing that, everybody who lives within that 5 miles gets an ISO 5 because we're able to transport and bring the water with us. So it doesn't matter if they have a height or not. So that was millions of dollars saved up in presented public safety because of the tankers y'all have supported and bought. We've got 4 tankers out there that haul 3,000 gallons of water. We have a structure fire, I can have 15,000 gallons of water sitting there ready to dump, essentially set operations up. So it's made a big difference.
Any other discussion? There not being any, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
No.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries.
I was so close. I knew I almost had you.
Okay, the next budget amendment is we've got a grant for $129,000 for personal protective turnout gear that the guys will wear. The county's part on that is $11,814. The total for our grant, our part we'll be getting is $118,146.
Motion to approve is presented.
This is a motion to accept the grant?
Yes.
And to the budget amendment.
Second.
Commissioner Dodd, is there any other comments? If not, we'll go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
I might have got them out of the way, but anyway, the next one,
Passes, so,
pardon?
excuse me, go ahead.
That's the word there. You're good.
Just said, motion passes.
I also got another grant for it's a fire prevention grant. It's free smoke detectors to low-income and disability citizens. What this is, it's free smoke alarms that we're gonna probably target some low-income areas, go door to door and install fire alarms. Also, one good thing about this is we have what I call bed checkers, people who are hard of hearing or deaf. We go in and we install this in their bedroom, and it goes up under their pillow, and if it detects smoke, it shakes the bed and the pillow to wake them up. So I'm very excited about that because, you know, we have people who are disabled, and that's going to be a blessing to them. The county's part on that is $619, and our part that we're getting is $112,381 for a total of $118.
Okay, are there any questions about this grant? And basically, we've got matching funds of $5,619, and we're basically getting about $112,000 from it.
Is there any other means to wake them up besides shaking them out of bed?
Well, they're hard, it's for hard of hearing people who are deaf, and all it does, it just vibrates on the pillow. It doesn't shake the bed, it actually just vibrates on the pillow and it wakes them up.
Most of these are the regular smoke alarms that you hear, you know, if you make a mistake and burn the fire or whatever.
And these have 10-year batteries in them, so they only have to be changed every 10 years.
Any other questions? Be happy to entertain a motion.
Motion to approve and accept the amendment.
I have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Johnson. Any other discussion? If not, we'll go ahead and call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief Carl. Okay, next is the General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendment. Mr. Sandvik, welcome.
Good evening. How are y'all?
Several of y'all I know were on Health and Ed, so you're used to their motions, so we can move right along this guy. So
Okay. Our first one is Safe Schools and School Safety, new funds from the state of Tennessee, no match. The amendment covers the additional $1,306,923 in Tennessee Safe School and School Safety funds. They broke it into two different names for some part that the system will receive this year. $1,097,740 is non-recurring, and $209,183 is recurring funding. Last year, we got total 209,000. These funds will be expended for the safety equipment that now has been approved as part of the board's 2018-19 safety plan. Our recommended motion is to amend the 2018-19 general purpose school budget, Fund 141, for the additional $1,306,923 in Tennessee Safe School and school safety funds that the system will receive this year. Other state funds account 46,590 for the revenue, and the related expenditure will be in 72,620,701.
Are we gonna keep going?
However y'all want to do it. I've got it.
Continue, unless one of you would like for us to stop, we'll continue until then.
And I did take the liberty. We have started issuing POs for this. This is a reimbursement grant. We need to get it turned around. And it took a while to get all the information and then the election to bring it forward to y'all. But the other amendment, again, this isn't just a routine, nothing new this year. This is taking donations that went to ending fund balance last year, some insurance proceeds, and another donation that we got. So we're pretty well, we have to spend them the way we're spending them. It uses $56,575 in donations, $18,900 in fire insurance proceeds, and that the wrestling building at Blackman that have gone to fund balance, and a new $30,000 donation from the James Jones Foundation to the Spectrum program. And it funds, the amendment funds the related expenditures tied to this $105,475 total. Smyrna West Alternative, $7,513 from the Smyrna Rotary Club. They have been helping that school. Coordinated School Health, $34,250 from Ascension Health, St. Thomas. The Spectrum program, this is another pot of Spectrum money, $7,247. The Children's Charity Fund is from the United Way and other donors. And then the demolition of Blackman High Wrestling. Yeah, it's kind of Blackman High. Our recommended motion is to amend $34,250 from account 34,585, restricted for capital projects, $18,900 from account 34,655, committed for education, $22,325 from account 39,000 unassigned fund balance, and a $30,000 donation to the related $105,475 in general purpose school fund expenditures as presented. This could have been like 5 amendments, but I thought I'd make more.
No, you did good.
So, and those are our 2 general fund amendments.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Is the Blackman building, was it burnt down or?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we've got a little over 300,000 we're holding in fund balance to go toward rebuilding it. Actually, it didn't happen in time to add to this amendment. We have issued a purchase order for design, so I'll be bringing back another amendment.
What, do you know what happened?
Do you remember what caused that, Lisa?
I do not.
The Riverdale one was Fryer related. I don't remember what caused this one, but yeah, it was.
Wasn't arson or anything?
No, it was not arson, but it was a total loss. I just got the name. It's too far back, Commissioner.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Mr. Sandy? We can entertain a motion. Oh, okay, we got both of them. All right. There being no further discussion, we'll go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peake?
Yes.
Our next amendment is our 2018-19 capital projects budget amendment, Fund 177. Each July 1st, outstanding purchase orders in this fund are liquidated. The funds go to fund balance which in this fund is account 34,685, committed for capital projects. These purchase orders are for projects that had not been finished by June 30, and the amendment takes the funds out of that committed capital projects account and rebudgets the expenditures for the projects that haven't been completed. This year, we have $1,542,888 to rebudget. This is a weird fund. It functions nothing like the building program, nothing like the general purpose school fund. It's funded by a little over 4 cents this year from the property tax. Since it's funded by the property tax, we will start getting this year's budgeted funds in November. We will have the bulk of them by the end of February. So we've let the fund balance build up some so we can work on projects as the money is coming in. But the other thing is we have probably completed most of the projects that we liquidated in June 30. Basically we're going to use this money for this year's projects. It's a strange fund to us, but this is an annual routine amendment for us. Our recommended motion is to amend the 2018-19 capital projects budget, Fund 177, by reducing account 34,685 committed for capital projects by $1,542,888, and by increasing maintenance and repair services buildings, account 91,300, 335 by the same amount as presented.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Commissioner Dodd. Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There being none, we'll go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Arnold?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yeah.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
And this item we mentioned late in the budget process, but we did not have final details in time to bring it to Health and Ed in June. Initially, we did not think we would get any EESI funds out of last fiscal year's grant. But other school systems didn't come down. We got nearly $1.3 million. We had requested another $500,000 higher, but we weren't thinking we'd get anything.
Can
So
you explain that fund to the rest of the committee, because we've got a lot of new members?
sure. Yes. Oh, yeah. It is a state fund. They loan money. We're getting ours at 1%. They call it an administrative fee. Some of the earlier we got at 0.75% interest. We look for short payback. Some of them have probably been under. I know some have been under 3. Some of them have been real close to 2 to 7 year paybacks.
And these are to implement energy efficiencies.
Energy efficiencies in the schools, and it's designed to be kind of a self-perpetuating fund. They're having trouble getting additional funds in the budget process, but they recycle the funds as systems pay them back. But
But you've done water too, not only just did we do water with this?
no, water was the capital lease.
Oh, the capital lease,
Yeah,
okay.
which is winding down. But yeah, since then we've done a couple of these projects. At least, I think this may be like the 4th or 5th.
And when you've done energy studies, we've done quite well with this. They're
Yes.
paying- I mean, it's been worthwhile to do it.
Yes, oh yeah.
Yeah, start changing out all the lights and the
Yeah,
ballasts.
yeah, we've been doing these, I don't remember when we did the first one, but the board says we will pay the debt service out of our GPS funds. And it's worked well for us. We have tried to be conservative, looking at the average payback for the group of projects, and trying to tie our debt service to that average payback. We don't want to have an average package of 4 years and pay for it over 7. We're
Right.
trying to avoid stuff like that. So, this 2018 project is $1,282,842, and we'll put energy management systems in 15 more of our schools, and that will essentially finish up our schools. We did not have an approved allocation in time to go to Health and Ed in June. We probably won't have any payments due until the 2019-2020 budget, because payments don't start until 60 days after the completion of all 15 systems. Typically, it pretty well takes us the fiscal year to get the installation up and going. So if we come back with an amendment, it's because the installation went faster this year. That hasn't happened yet, but we are seeing savings from these energy conservation projects. In 2011, 2012, we used 88 million kilowatt hours of electricity for, and I like the numbers on this, at that point we had 38,883 K-12 students. Add 6,000 to that. In 2017-18, we used 89 million kilowatt hours for 44,883 K-12 students. This is a 1.05% increase for 6,000 more students and 2 completely new schools, Stewart's Creek High, Rocky Fork Middle, and 1 rebuild school, which is essentially a new school, John Coleman. If we adjust out those 3 schools, and trying to get it, adjust out the bulk of John Coleman, we have a 6.8% drop in our kilowatt hours. Some of that is probably due to the weather that actual year. But at those schools that we had in 2011, 2012, I think we'd say our savings have covered the rate increases we've had there. And we do look for fairly short-term projects. Some of the energy management companies pitch proposals to bring us stuff 14, 20 years out. We have been able to go in that 2.5 to 7 year range, and do feel that we have been more than covering our interest in principal payments. So our request is to get the Commission's approval of the 2018 Energy Efficient School Initiative Project of $1,282,842 and a related debt, which will be repaid through the General Purpose School Fund as presented.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? There being none, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Motion passes.
If I could comment on one earlier item, just when Lisa was presenting the insurance fund, and because some of y'all, it's Mr. Mayor, just the school board, by paying its medical insurance over that 10 months, we prepay July and August. Some years earlier, there was a question, they were saying, well...
When does that pay?
Yeah, no, we have already paid it in advance, so,
Right.
yeah, I just
You
wanted to
collect the
clarify
10
that.
months.
Yeah, collect 10.
The July and August has already been
It's
paid
already
in
been
that 10
paid,
months. It's
yeah.
kind of, it covers that 2
Yeah,
months.
yeah. So that question has come up before. I wanted to understand. We're not borrowing money for 2 months. We prepaid. So if you want me to sit here on the
Next thing we'll be looking
juvenile
at.
detention.
There she is.
She's coming out.
Yeah, you can still stay with us if you want to.
Let's-
We'll be looking at a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Education and Juvenile Detention. And this is Ms. Rebecca.
It's Rebecca Basket.
Welcome. If you would, go ahead and explain what you're looking at.
We're requesting approval for a memorandum of understanding between the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center and the Rutherford County Board of Education. And that understanding is that juvenile detention will provide educational services to the students in the facility. And this is for the academic year 2018 and 2019. So, and this is also going to be in accordance with TCA 49-6-3023, which with that ruling, the local education can have an agreement with your local juvenile facilities to provide those educational services. Attorney Josh McCreary did review the memorandum. He did make some suggestions. The Board of Education was agreeable to those suggestions as well.
Jeff, you
Well,
comments
just,
you want?
this is one of the changes that has come down from the state, and it will kind of flow through our BEP state funds. So we may see a budget amendment tying to some of this at some point in the year when we know a bit more.
Sounds promising.
So these students are still counted on a roll to get BEP. And who's going to educate you will pay the?
We have actually a full-time teacher on staff and
Yeah, we met her with them, a couple.
Yeah, we have 2 educational assistants and the full-time teacher on staff. And the Board of Education is actually going to be supplying us with the Edgenuity program. We've already got everything in place to where Tom Delbridge is our point of contact with this, but they're able to get the electronic grades online, so the Board of Education can access that. And our hopes is that when the students leave the facility, they are not so far behind when they go back to school. And then while they're there, we're talking to them about college and other things that they have in their future. So that's our hope with this, and keep them from dropping out of school.
It's one of the things we really didn't have any discretion on.
Right.
So,
Prior to this, we relied heavily on the parents and the schools getting makeup work and things like that. And we've even gone to the schools to get schoolwork for the kids to work on while they're there, so they're not so far behind. And this will be great, especially with the online coursework, because we do pre-testing, benchmark testing, and post-testing. So we have some 17-year-olds that are testing on an 8th grade level, so that's going to help with that.
And who was the name of the teacher?
It's Krista Pope.
What do we need to do, Robert? The chairman, excuse me. Do we?
Well, my suggestion would be, to approve the memorandum. As far as cost, this is funded through is that part of your funding, or will it be coming out of?
it basically is part of our funding. Until we see what numbers come through, as far as actual number of students, we don't know. We have sent through the purchase order for the software contract at those additional licenses that will be used in juvenile detention. So we've taken care of that piece. Now we'll see how the revenues flow through to us, and we can update you on that. And it may be during our long June 30th before we really.
This is pretty radical change from what we've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the answer is we really don't know.
Yeah.
But explain again, didn't you say that this was mandated now by the state?
Yes. Yeah, they just changed the way these services.
Yes.
The local boards of education have to be more involved.
Right. Because like I said prior, it was me calling parents, call your school and get the schoolwork for your child and bring it up here. And now with this and the Edgenuity program that the Board of Education is providing, when we do those tests, the kids actually can get online and do their schoolwork online. It's very good for the students.
There have been several changes in recent years. The children who are in residential mental health facilities, we now are billed and reimburse those institutions for some of our students. This is about the third, I can only think of 3 right off, change in things that used to just be done very differently that are now kind of flowing through the BEP process.
Well, y'all have what, about 30 students
Yes, sir.
on an average,
Yes, sir.
from what I've seen in the past, so. Mayor, did you have a comment there?
There was another one that we passed legislation on BEP dollars. There's a facility here in town called Genesis on Church Street.
Yes. Yes.
And they're kind of the worst of the worst after
I'm
they
trying to find out more about that, how that one is going to actually function.
Yeah, well, the BEP dollars will just continue on and flow to Genesis here in Clarksville, and I think there's some other similar type buildings like that they have programs over in West Tennessee.
Yeah, we just don't have all the details yet on how it's going to flow.
Sure.
I have that on my desk.
Well, I'm calling. I'll pass it through. Okay.
So basically, if we approve this memorandum, explain to me exactly what will occur differently from in the past as far as funding goes. That's what I think we're worried
Probably
about.
will be immaterial in looking at it probably won't change anything we see on our BEP number. It'll just be in that kind of that final adjustment we get that includes growth and whatever. My thought is it will probably flow through in there, but we should see some number of students registered in our attendance system. Tom Delbridge is over the attendance system. And BEP funds, well, it's really, BEP funds would be generated for the next year out.
Well, it sounds like there'll be an increase because we're already paying the salaries of these teachers that are there.
But are those students already on your roll? I mean,
Yes, these students will be on our roll.
no, I'm saying, but have they already been on your roll?
No.
So if somebody went to juvenile detention, they came off Rutherford County Schools roll, and they weren't counted as part of the ADA, and we weren't paid for them. Okay. So that's
But this
where the
year's
money-
BEP is based on last year's
Okay.
student numbers,
Right.
so,
But it's still a change.
yes. And I think on the expenditure side, we've recorded our part by recording that purchase order for Ingenuity.
Can I ask a question?
I know we have several contracts with other counties where we're holding
Right.
juveniles there. Does this apply to those students also?
It doesn't, I believe that the Board of Education gets a reimbursement from those counties
Yeah.
after
Okay.
they're there.
It
for so
should,
many
the
days.
money should flow to us
Okay.
through the attendance.
Okay.
We will probably have a session on this at our conference in November.
Are there any other questions? Well, we're open for a motion.
Well, knowing that Josh has approved the contract gives me a certain level of ease with it, so I'll make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Education and Juvenile Detention.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other question or discussion? There being none, let's call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, Mr. Nolan, you come up, solid waste fund budget amendment.
Good evening.
Hello.
Trying to get some funding in place in different areas. This first one is the 3 sections of funding. The first section, number 1, is for the convenience center to do the site prep work and some of that type stuff. The second section of that is to add money for recycling, where we have to pay for contamination fees and disposal fees for glass and plastic and single stream. And then the third one is we had an unexpected backhoe repair. We had money in the line item that was budgeted for other items, so we were able to repair the backhoe. But now we're asking to increase that money to where we can put it back to spend on other repairs that we're going to have for the rest of the year. And all of this is coming out of the solid waste fund balance.
Okay, is that one another also? Do you have another one?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and continue, please.
The other page is trying to crush open tops, the debris in open tops. There's a company called Smash It that came to our Weekly Lane Center and demonstrated his equipment. A couple of public works commissioners were actually there to attend. It's pretty neat. It's an arm that comes over and it's got a spinning wheel, spins slowly, and it crushes and mashes the debris in the open top. It does not do well with mattresses, but it does with other things. And the agreement that we can set up with this company is $40 per container to smash it. It costs us $103 an hour to run a truck. So at Weekly Lane, doing it there, you smash the container from full to less than half, and then you refill it again. So now you're hauling roughly a load and a half. So you spend $143 instead of spending the $206.
You only smash it the one time.
If you only smash it to once. Now, Weekly when we did that demonstration, we had 12 full open tops. We smashed 10 trash open tops and one metal, and we hauled the other 2 on Tuesday. And I waited till the middle of the day to send the driver after the second full one, knowing that we'd have a load to get. And we wound up hauling 4 or 5 more loads that got refilled. And then Tuesday evening, when they called in their loads, they had 9 full. You know, so you're refilling half full containers, and that was my concern of doing them all. Is you're going to wind up half full containers and we'd get in a bind. So that's the reason we worked it that way, to stay out of a bind. The better bang for our buck, Weekly Lane, if the landfill is running good and the driver doesn't have any issues, is from the time he leaves the landfill with an empty container, goes to Weekly Lane, swaps out his load, comes back to the landfill, dumps it, and ready to leave again. It's an hour. So it works at Weekly, but just barely. Sand Hill, Almaville, Bradeville, Craner Road, Rock Crusher, Rock Vale, those centers are roughly an hour and a half, anywhere from 85 to 95 minutes. And then we've got 4 that's 2-hour round trips. Those longer hauls is where we're going to get the better bang for our buck. And this budget amendment here, the $20,000 would cover 500 smashes.
Do they set up equipment on site, or they come in when you call them?
It's mounted on a truck, and it's like a 2-ton truck, kind of a short wheelbase truck. And it's a pivot arm that's at the back of the truck. So he backs the truck up and touches our container, and the arm pivots over in it, similar to what a backhoe would be doing. And it's got a metal drum with cleats on it. And as it rotates, he's mashing down, and it's just kind of crushing it up. Now, those mattresses, he can move them around, but he really can't tear them up. The loads that didn't have mattresses in it went real well. So if we start doing this, then we will need to designate a mattress-only container in the centers, so we don't have that problem.
So it's a mobile service. He comes to you, it's his truck, it's his equipment.
Yes. And it's sole source because there's 11 of these trucks in the United States. There's 2 of them in Tennessee, and he owns both of them.
On the expenditure for Leanna, remind me, what was our conclusion from Public Works? Did we table that, or?
No, we're still going to go on with the project. We've got a meeting with the neighbors set up for next week, and then we're getting the funding ready to where we can keep on processing.
Well, I'm not quite sure that was the decision, was it?
They didn't stop it.
It wasn't.
Got the minutes.
It wasn't a decision to continue on. There was, okay.
Mr. Jernigan suggested postponing it for a month, but they never voted on it. I don't think it ever came to a vote.
See it there, I'll look down this side.
Well, I think the discussion was, let's wait till we have the meeting, which I've set the meeting up for next Tuesday at 5:30 here with the citizens.
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
This amendment.
Yeah, motion passed by Commissioner Jernigan, or Turner and Jernigan, to approve the budget amendment unanimously by roll call vote.
Okay, but that was done before any information was actually talked about and discussed.
That's
correct. Okay? And that's where I entered I came to the table and I said, we're getting the cart before the horse.
But that vote was the most recent meeting.
Yes.
That was the other night.
And so this budget has, okay,
Okay.
it's passed.
I think the members need some information, okay? All right, so if you all will recall, this money was appropriated for Rockville last year. There were 2 people out there because the Rockville store didn't want that to come in. So last November, this time, I believe it was shifted to Leanna. Increase the Leanna Convenience Center. So here's the problem. There's a grant. That grant runs out in December. Am I correct?
And I talked to them yesterday, and they said we can't get an extension, but we don't have that money
I think
yet.
that was asked for, and it should be in the minutes, to ask you to get an extension, because we didn't want to move forward until the citizens had an opportunity to have input. Because if you look at the design of the facility, there's a retention pond on the corner for the stormwater, but then we're going to try to approach the landowner who has a sinkhole for if that spills over and goes into the sinkhole. Last November, nobody ever had a town hall meeting. They never approached and talked to any of the citizens out there. There was a lot of concern. And so when they started seeing activity out there within the last few weeks, they came in and threatened to sue. One of the landowners did. And I said, well, hang on just a second. I've got them talked down from not suing, but sitting down and trying to figure out what's best for them. Their biggest issue is stormwater runoff, devaluation of their property. But we were getting ready to move ahead with the thought of losing this grant money because I think it says that something has to be done by December. Am I correct?
It's a $100,000 grant from TDEC, and it's a 50% match. We have to spend $200,000 to collect that 100. And it's the way they structured their grant funding made it easier for them county-wise. Is their funding is for the compactors and roll-off containers and the fencing.
And
what they're funded.
And the open tops containers have already been ordered?
Yes, sir.
That's correct. Okay, but nobody ever bothered to talk to the citizens in Mr. Rather's district. And they're pretty upset about it. But at least they're willing to sit down next Tuesday night, 5:30 on the night, Wednesday, whenever the night is.
What was the basis of their lawsuit going to be? Is it zoned properly already?
It is owned properly, that's correct. But,
In case a fire engine scared the man's horse and hurt someone.
yeah.
That's the old fire station right there on that property.
Yeah.
So that's.
So that's what he was threatening?
Is that not right, Mr. Bearcat?
That was
One of his
Mr. Reed's, that was Mr.
students.
Reed's, that was one contention, that's correct.
Part of this project would be the convenience centers, a new convenience center would be constructed. The old building that the fire truck was parked in would be taken down and another building put in.
So,
Continue to hold the fire truck.
okay, so the gentleman whose parents donated the property where the old school building used to be, donated it to the Department of Education. Department of Education then in turn gave it to the county. But I think it was general consensus because you got that passed before any of this information was talked about of the concerns of the citizens in Leanna. So I think the chairman said we don't need to do that to the citizens without talking to them about what we want to do. I think that we can work this out. If there's proper fencing, privacy fencing instead of cyclone fencing. They want to talk about traffic. They're going to talk about that, slowing down the trucks that fly through that three-way stop sign right there. But this was a move that went very quickly. I wasn't here, but it went very quickly from Rockville to here, and the citizens weren't involved.
So if you're meeting with them Tuesday, could we just go ahead and forward it to the full commission in case everything gets worked out there and we can move forward with Thursday night?
Sure. Yeah, I want everybody to know all the facts. Okay.
Well, and I think what Mike Kush was saying, from having been on planning commission, we served on that together, it's always, even when something's zoned properly, it's always a good idea to be a good neighbor.
That's correct.
So it's a courtesy is what you're doing. You're having a courtesy visit with them. But yeah, I mean, I think we can be a good neighbor. I think you can finesse that, negotiate that, and we'll figure it out. So, and since it did already come through, Public Works, I think I'm comfortable, voting on it, and then, because then we're not going to spend any money till you say we're ready to spend money anyway. So, yeah. So you kind of control that anyway.
When would you spend the $20,000 for the site work that's approved?
When we get all the permits in place and the site plan and, because we still have to go through planning and engineering just like anybody else would. Then we'll bring the equipment in to take the existing buildings down and do the site prep work while the equipment's on site. Then once we get that finished, then we can do the fencing and the concrete and stuff like that. the asphalt we won't be able to do until next spring. And then the landscaping stuff you won't be able to do this spring.
The 20, yeah, it's got to go through permitting yet, so I
Right.
think we could have the funds allocated.
Right,
and
that's fine.
May reassign them if need be, but
So we can look at a motion contingent upon the mayor resolving the problem with the landowner.
do you still want to keep both items together? Do you
Let's
separate?
split this just in case we have a problem there, a question comes back on this. So we actually need to look at the, let's see, I guess the contracts with private agencies. No, that's the one,
That's the second one.
that's the second one. Let's look at that first if you don't mind, and then we'll come back to this other one. So do I hear a motion on the contract? This is where we're talking about crushing the
Open top.
open tops.
Got it.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Piercy has a motion.
Second.
Second, Mr. Dodd. Okay, since we're spending money, we need to call a roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, now let's go back to the other one there. If somebody feels like they want to make a motion on that.
And I'm not really comfortable wording it as a contingency with the neighbors. Because again, like I said, that's a courtesy thing, and you'll figure out, I think you and Mac together can figure out if that's the direction we want to continue to proceed out there. So I'm happy to just make a motion to accept the recommendation as forwarded from Public Works.
Second.
Have a motion
And a second.
and a second.
Did you hear
I
that?
seconded it.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Commissioner Stevens?
Mr. Chairman, I think the mayor said it a while ago, they got a Tuesday meeting at 5:30 with these folks, but one thing that we did need was a consent to drain. And so with the conversations that were going on with those property owners, they weren't going to do that until they had a meeting with the mayor. So it was really contingent on that, on the consent to drain,
Well,
because they haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
And so I think with the mayor's conversation with them, and don't let me jump ahead there, Mayor, but they were, I think Mr. Nolan had told us about, he was doing a screened fence, really doing it right over there.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a great project, no doubt about that. But I think they just don't know what's happening and what's going on with a lot of stuff moving around out there and everything.
Well,
So this is a courtesy, like you said.
Right, and this was my thinking on the drainage, because I was here for that meeting. Again, having been on planning, sinkholes are kind of nature's drainage system. So I could see why that would be option one, and why you'd want to make that be your recommendation. But I also know there are very strict stormwater regulations in place. And so you can't run off onto a neighbor. So they would have to engineer, if we don't get the consent to drain, we will have to engineer a solution on site to maintain that water, to retain that water. So either way, just like we said before, with enough time and money, you can do anything. So they can engineer it either with their permission, or they can engineer it to keep it on site. So
Well, it depends on what that costs. If the neighbor
Right,
who has a
and-
sinkhole says no, then, and depend on what else they want us to do out there, we may decide
Yeah,
we don't
you-
want to do
right,
this
right.
at that site.
And then we can always reallocate those funds
Sure.
to
Well,
whatever
we'll
site.
We'll lose the grant.
Yeah.
The motion is to proceed.
To approve the budget amendment is all that you're doing. It's just putting the money in place.
And if the
Is it?
commission meeting Thursday night, we can get a report back how the meeting went,
Yeah.
decide if we want to scuttle it
But
then.
no contingencies, which I concur
Correct.
with, no contingencies.
Let me ask you a question then. If we're gonna go like what you just said, and I'm not opposed either way, but can we pull item number 1 out and then 2 and 3 separately? Because it's all on one budget amendment paper, but it's actually three
It's
different.
three different, this is really three amendments. But, they're three different things, it's just on one piece of paper, but.
So,
But
See what the-
if the,
And it'll all be separate on
It'll be separate on the,
Resolution.
yeah.
You want the 65 and 257 to stand alone, those amounts?
No, I think it's like number 2 and
The
number
fencing
3.
and the site.
The fencing and the site's all number 1. And then number 2 is money to pay for recycling stuff, and number 3 is the repair of the landfill equipment.
So I would separate,
You can separate or put them all together, really what y'all want to do.
I'd separate out number 1, the convenience center in Leanna, and do the rest of them together.
Right, that's what you were asking for, Mac? Have
please.
committee, yeah. I'll make that adjustment to my motion that we'll just move forward initially now with the convenience center, the $65,257 for the total of the $322. Those first 2 line items that you've got here.
Okay, was it okay with the
That's fine
second
with
to
me,
change
yes.
that also? Okay, and the second still stand with this?
That's fine.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Everybody straight on this? We're just voting on the number 1 item to keep this clean in case there's problems arise from it. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, let's call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes. Okay, now we're open for motions for 2 and 3. We can put those together.
I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
Have a motion. Commissioner Allen?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Stevens, thank you. Any other discussion? There being none, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
I've got one other thing, Mac.
Yes, sir.
How long have you worked on the Leanna project? How long has this been going on?
Leanna itself has been going on since the property management moved their grant from Rockwell to Leanna. That's when we started working on Leanna. We already, what y'all saw in Public Works Tuesday night, the concept plan, we had that already done for Rockwell. We've spent about $3,000 so far on Leanna, and I think we've spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 or $6,000 already on Rockwell, and don't have anything done yet.
But you've probably been working on, what, 3-4 months prior to this?
I was back to 17 when I saw was for Leanna, right? When the commission chose not to go forward with Rockville and switch, so it was November of 17.
Well, the point I'm getting to, on the behalf of Mr. Nolan, I believe he was been working under the direction of the previous administration. He just didn't run out here and do this by himself. You know, the little discussion we had the other night on Public Works kind of led to that, and this favored to it a little bit. But he has worked under the direction of the previous administration on this project.
Yeah, and all I was saying, Commissioner, is that none of the neighbors out there were in consultation and letting them know what they were doing. And so when Mr. Reed came in and yelled in my face that he was going to sue us, I tried to talk him down from that.
Right.
Because no one had notified him, and then the neighbor, he got the rest of the neighbors stirred up, who owns the sinkhole. And he says, nobody's ever contacted me. He was in the office this past Tuesday. He said, nobody contacted me about draining anything into my sinkhole. And so I'm trying to talk them down. I'm just saying, we were moving forward because it was on property. We were going to do it without contacting anybody, and that's not the way I think that we do business.
I know it's not, but we solely can't sit here and say it's his fault.
I did not say that.
I didn't say you did, but we can't.
Well, I didn't say that. I said that we should not get the cart before the horse of passing things on the budget without members knowing exactly what problems lie in front of you.
I understand that. I was in the meeting.
And when you talk to the neighbors, you're going to make a point to let them know that the plan that he shared, at least that's my understanding.
I've given them all copies now.
It's just a concept plan. It's like it's not a final. I mean, no, we hadn't made a decision to use their sinkhole. It was just a concept plan, right, Mac?
Right.
Well, it was a concept plan, but it had to be done. We had to start tearing the building down and moving forward because we'd lose the grant in December.
Right. No, but I'm just saying I didn't want them to think that we were, already assuming that we were going to drain on them. Period. It was just the initial concept plan. We hadn't had engineers out there yet. We hadn't decided what was going to be, you know, the best approach for draining on that land. I don't want them to think we were going to take advantage of them, is all I'm saying. I wanted them to
But
know
that's
that
what they feel like.
that's what they feel like. And so that's what I wanted to make sure that they understand.
Sure.
We were not trying to take advantage of them.
The concept plan shows a stormwater retention pond. And it's my understanding, if we get the consent to drain, we don't have to build that pond.
Okay. So the sinkhole was the backup.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was from planning and engineering when we first drawn the concept. Hey, there's a sinkhole. If you get that consent to drain, then you don't have to build this pond.
And then this probably leads us to something that you might want to give some thought to, and that is, just because legally we don't have to have a neighborhood meeting, like you said, doesn't mean that we don't want to be good neighbors and engage them. So we might want to just rethink policy when we get ready to do, you know, expand anything like this that's going to impact neighbors.
Well,
We just might want to.
especially when you're increasing the size and with trash, traffic, things that smell, especially right in the middle of Leanna.
Yeah.
That people have been out there for, you know, Methodist Church goes back for, you know, 1700s.
Well,
I wouldn't like it either.
Well, and the downfall of every organization is poor communication. So if
Exactly.
we can communicate better with the neighbors,
Sure.
it's going to make our lives easier, their lives easier, and we'll end up with a better finished product.
Well, I've been in this position 3 weeks when the neighbors approached me, and I had to start backtracking to figure out where did the money come from, what did last year's commission,
Right.
How did this get here without any notification to these people what they're telling me, and it was because of the conflict we had in Rockville, 2 people kept that from being expanded to where it is. It was all political.
Well, and we did try to have, and I'm looking down like Pettis is going to be here. Yeah, we did have a lot of meetings with the community out there. Again, trying to be a good neighbor, trying to get it worked out,
And it
just
never
couldn't get it
couldn't
worked
work
out.
out. But then we just said, well, we'll just shift over here to Leanna without consulting those folks. And I think if we do communication, good communication, so we want to do this. And at least the neighbors backed Mr. Reed down and said, don't go in there and start threatening lawsuits, you know, because we really don't want to lose this, but at the same time, can we make it better? And that's where I've got them. Instead of putting a cyclone fence, can we put a privacy fence? It may cost us a little bit more money. Can you put rose bushes around to help smell? I don't know.
Right.
The privacy fence, we have to have one.
But they didn't know that.
Right. I mean,
Nobody showed the concept plan. Nobody showed them.
You're just bringing them in the loop.
Sure.
Bringing them in the loop and letting them have to do it. That's a good idea.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the contract with Train for the correctional work centers. Is Mr. Cope here, Secretary? There he is.
Evening. What we have is the contract for our training service agreement is up for its 5-year renewal. Mayor and I spoke about it in our last board meeting. Josh McCray has looked over the contract. There is a slight increase, I think about 1% for each year of the next 5 years, and it'll equal to about $291 a year. So I think I've got that in my budget. Oh, Lisa.
We should do this on purpose, don't they?
Boilerplate like that.
Yeah. Tiny print all run together.
I certainly can't pick it out.
You said Josh has looked at it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I need.
And this, we've used them for the last 5 years. They keep the chillers chilling and the boilers boiling, and that's what's
Fair job.
important.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Have a motion. Need a second. Mr. Johnson, second. Thank you. Is there any other discussion or questions? Being none, we'll go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Peace?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Cope. Okay, now we have a general fund budget amendment for the county mayor, and you gonna take this one, Mayor, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start out with that, but then I'll yield to Ms. Nolan, Finance Director. This is, I guess, whatever's left from Mr. Jeff Davidson's position as deputy to the mayor. Now that switches over through the budget amendment to Mr. Sandlin. So, Ms. Nolan, if you'll.
We had a payout of accrued leave, and so we need to fully fund the position for the rest of the year, so.
Yeah,
this-
accrued that much leave, right?
Right, so we had to pay it out, so when Steve came in, then of course we had already paid out a portion to Mr. Davidson. So this is really no different from, what you see from us at the end of the year, where we have people who leave and we've had to pay out their leave and had to,
Yeah. Motion to approve is presented.
Have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Piercy, thank you, sir. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes, motion passes. Next, I think we're going to be looking at general fund budget amendment.
Well, this
Excuse
is,
me,
the
the Regional Transportation Authority contract. Mayor, are you going to do that one, or?
I have not attended my first Regional Transit Authority. The NRCG, I think, is set up for next month. I will start attending that. I've asked Mayor McFarland to be my alternate. There are other people that I just appointed, so I'll start attending, and this will be part of that. But this is the contract between Regional Transportation Authority in Rutherford County for the regional bus service. You see the RTA buses coming in, they'll come through Smyrna and Murfreesboro, pick people up, take them back. I think it's for, how much, 220.
It's for the current fiscal year, and the money's already in the budget, so really you're approving the contract.
Any questions?
Is that entirely our portion, or is that?
Our portion.
Okay. And are we the pass-through? Do we pay for everybody and they pay us, or do each municipality pay their own?
Yes, each municipality pays its own.
Is there? I was thinking there was one of these where we paid it and they got reimbursed, but that's not this. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
You have a motion?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Dodd. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, now we're going to look at the extension of the USDA lease. Lisa, is that one yours?
I can do this one. This is a 10-year lease, but it was really 5 years and a 5-year renewal at their option, and they, USDA wants to extend the lease.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. That's Johnson was the second. Oops. Is there any other discussion?
I think that one thing we pointed out in our property management meeting, their lease actually pays for the building.
Yes.
Do we have any members of the Ag Committee on here now? Okay. Okay, Mr. Piercy, so.
Well, the thing about it is, when we discussed it in property management, the prudent thing to do is go ahead and do this due to the fact that if we tried to gouge them and an increase, we could wind up with an empty building, $144,000 something a year just blown out the window. So
Well,
it's a prudent thing to do, and it came out of property management.
Okay, good. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda is a general fund budget transfer for risk management, I believe.
That
Okay.
one. This is a request to move $2,500 from other charges to premium on corporate surety bonds. It's an estimate for all the new officials and their bonds, and it came in a little higher than what we had budgeted.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, let's call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. And now we're looking at a general fund budget amendment for drug court.
This is recognizing federal fund passing through a grant from the state for the Veterans Treatment Court Phase 2, Year 2 of the 3-year grant that begins on October 1st. Originally, the budget was accounted for as other state grants. We need to account for it as a federal money. So this is a decrease in the state portion of $89,950, reallocating it to federal revenue of $102,100, and then appropriating it down from $1,500, a decrease to the part-time salary, increase $3,450 for in-service training, $450 for communication, $800 for license, $450 for travel, and $8,500 for staff development.
So this is no
It's all
new
grant.
money, just reallocation too from where it was.
So
In
moved.
Part 2.
Commissioner Dodd makes a motion.
Second.
Piercy. Thank you. Any discussion? There being none, let's call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Okay, now we're looking at debt service fund budget amendment.
So when we budget for the fiscal year, we anticipated borrowing the money in August. At that time, we're not for sure how we're going to structure the deal, but I did estimate $600,000 in education interest, just to have something in there. As we structured the debt, we added a payback of $1 million in the spring of that debt. So that is what you're seeing tonight. Also, when we get monies in, you'll see that bond proceeds of $355,031 that came in to help pay the cost of issuance. That balances out to the underwriter's discount and the other debt charges. There will be about $1 million in interest on this debt for this fiscal year. Like I said, I budgeted $600, so that's where you have that additional $407 that balances that out. So this makes a decrease of unassigned fund balance of $1,307,371, with $1 million of that being that additional principal that we're paying.
Which is a good thing. Motion to approve.
Have a motion, Commissioner Allen, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Johnson. Second. Thank you, sir. Any discussion or questions? There being none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Next, we'll look at an authorization to apply for the 2018 Home Security Grant. And I don't see Mr. Cass.
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security Grant, excuse me.
Home security.
Homeland Security, and this is a request. The award is $94,645, and
Comes through FEMA.
yes,
Is there any match?
no.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Allen and Dodd. Any other questions?
And what's it for?
This is a recurring grant we get. It's actually been kind of shrinking since 9/11. You know, it first came out, there was quite a bit of money that were given to the states. And this is our portion of that, and part of this is shared with the other people that are in our group. Of course, I'm getting this from public safety, so.
There's monies
As far as what it's going to be, do you know what specifically what it's going to do? Okay. Yes, he's got it.
to get, but you know, part of it's going to Murfreesboro and part to Smyrna, part to Laverne. I will tell you what this says. I'm just not sure what a Jack Russell robot is. Explosive entry equipment, a transportation trailer, hydraulic breaching tool, ballistic vests and helmets, active shooter kits, medical supplies, Weatherhawk weather station, body armor, HazCat, biocheck kits, and some cameras.
And Jack Russell robots.
Jack Russell robot.
I have no idea what a Jack Russell robot is.
Well, you need one. Take care of the front door, somebody rings the doorbell.
Heard that one?
Still getting shots around the little dog
Dog
up
out
there.
there.
Yeah. Go by dog.
Okay, one other thing from public safety that I picked up on this, of course, we're getting the grant, but it's just like other grants throughout our area and our region. If one of the other members needs this, we're automatically going to send it to them, and that's reciprocal. I mean, if they've got, something from these grants that we could use or need, then we'll automatically get that too. So we
Like ambulance, when we sent our crew, ambulance couldn't send a crew down to North Carolina, but he had a Swift boat, so he loaned that to Chief Farley, and they took our Swift boat that actually belonged to the ambulance department. And that was grant money also, so they just all reciprocate and use the equipment when needed in emergencies. They all work very well together.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and call roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Pete?
Yes. Is there any other business?
I have none.
It's good. It's been a pretty long evening for me. I don't know about you guys, but.
We'll take the training wheels off next month.
Road weary.
Training wheels.
Just a moment.
I'm sorry, I'm
Please
sorry.
come on.
We got,
We did the MOU with
Yeah.
Ag Center.
yeah, we have an MOU with the Ag Center we need to talk about. And
I thought we were going to take that next.
Well, he said he needed to get it to UT
Yeah.
so that they could get it in place by the 1st.
Okay.
I apologize. I'll assume responsibility for it not being on your iPad. I thought Mr. Tuggle was taking care of that, but the UT is wanting to do a MOU with the county. Currently, there are 4 part-time positions that they're wanting to move. They're county employees. They're wanting to move them under their umbrella, and that's just to reimburse their wages to them, so they'll pay whatever salary we set. But then we'll just reimburse them because they want to have all the employees under their umbrella instead of kind of having part of them county employees and part of them state employees through UT. And so that's really what the understanding is. And we did have Josh to review the agreement that they are wanting to make, and he made a few tweaks, and then they've agreed to that, and then we wanted to bring it forward to you.
yeah, our concern was that benefits and retirement and et cetera may be different from the University of Tennessee than what we offer.
Correct.
Did we get that worked out?
We did,
Okay.
because they're not going to.
And these are 4 part-time people, but there already is there are several other employees that it's under the same contract that we pay. Some we pay 55%, some we pay 100. So this just really pretty much takes the rest of their employees.
Is it UT and TSU, or
UT
is it
and
just,
TSU.
it's not just UT?
Some are UT and some are TSU.
But this is only addressing the UT.
The 4
Well,
UT, the 4 part-time UT ones.
These 4 are going to go to the UT one.
And they're located at Lane Niagara.
It's very similar to what we have with the health department. I mean, we've got dual employees in the health department as well.
The only, it
And
is,
this MOU is satisfactory to you, it's benefits, simplifies, it's beneficial to the county.
Oh, it's like
It's the
UT
same,
wants.
it's you
It's
guys call
somewhat
it
a
pass-through.
Yeah.
So what,
We're not losing the part-time people. It's just they wanted, UT wants it simplified.
Moving
so.
between line items, basically.
they really want it to be their employees, not our employees.
That's all right with us, isn't it?
Yeah, we still have to pay them.
But we pay them.
Yeah, we pay them. Okay.
Is that clear for everybody? I'm still stirring around. Steve, did y'all talk about this here?
No,
Okay.
Anthony did not bring this up.
we hadn't had a meeting in 2 months and several days. Review one, but we just meet 4 times a year.
That's why I was asking, it. We seem to lack some information, so is it beneficial to the county? Do you support it? Do you?
I do.
I support it.
But
Whatever it's worth.
Make a motion, that's all.
I'll move to accept.
Second.
Motion and second, and that was Piercy.
Piercy.
The second there. Thank you, guys. Any other questions there? From having been on Ag Committee, our association with UT and TSU works really good, and Mr. Tuggle, you'll find, is very good with his budget. He doesn't come in here asking for a lot of money and, jumped up and down, and he's easy to work with for us. But okay, let's see. There's no money changing this. Let's just pass all.
There will be an amendment later, because it will be one later, but not now.
Well, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the reason why is this is going to take a while to get through all the hoops, so they need to stay on our payroll until they move to the other one.
Oh, sorry, there you go. He hasn't signed it yet. I don't know
Well,
if
it's
he
got to
did.
go to commission.
Oh, that's true.
Well,
I'll just be quiet, go back to my chair.
Boy, thanks for sticking around.
is there any other business? There being none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn out here.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.